Welcome to Midweek Experiments in Faithfulness. This is a weekly facilitated spiritual practice with a Quaker flavor and an experimental ethos. My name is Jen, and I'm the program manager here at Beacon Hill Friends House, where I live and work. The Friends House is a Quaker center for learning and action and a residential community of about 20 people who live according to Quaker values. Tonight, we have my former philosophy professor, Dr. Corwynn Beals, with Guided Tour Through Hell, Finding Missing Archetypes in Your Deepest Shadows. In this practice, we will explore the 4 primary hero archetypes we all have and take a truthful gaze into the shadows within us. The goal is to identify which of our archetypes are missing because they've been chased into the shadows. Now, I'm excited to introduce you to Corwynn. Dr. Corwynn Beals is a 12th-generation Quaker who taught philosophy for 15 years at George Fox University before starting his own practice as a hellwalker. As Virgil did for Dante, Corwynn helps people take the necessary but difficult path through their interior hell. He helps people enter their darkest shadows and find true light. Corwynn lives on a few acres outside of Dundee, Oregon, and works and plays from a treehouse 52 feet up a Redwood. He lives with his wife of 30 years and 2 teenage sons. You can check out Corwynn's work at corwynnbeals.com. Again, welcome. We're happy that you've joined us, and Corwynn, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Jen. I appreciate that. It's great to have you reach out to me and remind me of some of the best years of teaching with students like you, and it's great to see what you're going on to do. And I appreciate you having me in this space, even though we're all across the country here. And as she said, I've kind of just recently settled into that term. It's a little bit, maybe it's not on your standard list of professions and what you want to be when you're a third grader. But I've had it, what do you say? What do you do? It's easy to say I'm a professor, but now that I do this work, I've found Hellwalker to be the best thing, because what I do is just help people we all have to take that journey, that interior journey through our own internal hell, which I think Dante's journey was. And we live in a culture that doesn't support us very much in that, right? We support each other on the climb up the mountain. What are you going to do? How can we support you? How do you find your way to the light that's on the top of the hill? That's, beacon, right? But who's there when we're like going down into the descent, right? The second half of life journey, right? And what I've found is that archetypes are one of the greatest tools. There's many tools that can be used in that shadow journey, shadow work. And I've used a lot of those different tools and still do, but I've found that these archetypes can give us a language to describe what is dark and murky. And we have these mixed emotions, these different currents within us. And, as Quakers, we're probably a lot more accustomed to, being in that silence, right? That a lot of people aren't used to doing. And so we're maybe more used to hearing those voices and listening to those different parts of us. But I've found these key archetypes, and I'm going to go over 4 primary archetypes, to be tremendously helpful, right? And the 4 archetypes that we're going to be looking at are warrior, lover, sovereign, and magician. Okay. And these are, there's lots of different archetypes. There's probably hundreds of different archetypes. And this comes from, I've picked up these 4 from a book by Moore and Gillette that they made this famous. But I've found that, Moore and Gillette kind of named these 4, that it was more focused on, their ministry was more focused on men. And Carolyn Miss, another person, has kind of done archetypes. And there's actually a lot of people out there who have, of course, first and foremost, Carl Jung. But what I've found is that these 4 really map onto these four general orientations. And you notice all personality types going back to pre-Socratic personality types kind of have these four types, whether it's the four energies or, all these different, I have a list of probably 25 different personality types, and they all have the same, they don't have the same four, but they have this pattern of four. And I found that this lover, magician, warrior, sovereign matches that. And generally, and also sort of the indigenous, the circle of the four directions. And so it tends to be pretty universal and pretty archetypal, right? Collective consciousness. But what I found is that we all tend to have one of these archetypes that's a little bit stronger or even inflated. And we all tend to have one that's deflated or perhaps even completely missing. And what I found is that in doing this, and then doing the shadow work, when we're discovering, sort of dealing with ghosts that people are facing, whether, not literal ghosts necessarily, but like the demons they're facing, or the challenges that just they can't escape from. What I found is that those so-called ghosts or demons are often just their missing archetype that's appearing to them because they want to be back on the team, right? Say we're each born with this team, and at some point in our life, we kick some of them off, right? Now, of course, as a Quaker, can you guess which one got kicked off my team really early, right? The warrior, right? So what I've discovered is that took me a long time to reconnect to my warrior. And, what I think Quakers have historically rejected is like what would archetypally be called the dark warrior, right? The warrior that is being offensive, that's going out on raids, that's making war, that's using violence to advance oneself. But this warrior at its true sort of neutral state, or especially its light state, it is protecting, right? And it's actually, when you think of what the early Quakers were doing in terms of prison relief, they were, being warriors in a sense. They were going out and protecting those who didn't have a voice in London and those who didn't have a way to protect themselves. So that warrior energy is around one of these four core needs, which is the need for safety, right? And the need for trust, right? And it's also associated with the body. I may have time to go into the holdfast archetypes later, but each of these also has a sort of companion archetype, which is connected to the need and tells us when our need isn't being met, right? So, and in this case, the holdfast archetype is the victim. And we all have this inner victim that says, hey, someone just offended me. Someone just crossed a boundary. Someone just disrespected me, or someone disrespected this group, or someone like harmed us in some way, or someone's about to harm us. And so alert, right? And then the warrior within us protects us or protects others. And the lover, and the warrior has to do with the body, and the lover has to do with the heart, and the core need is to connect and to care for. And the lover isn't just in the sense of like a paramour or sexual lover, but it's all things relating to the heart and to connecting and empathy. The lover, provides empathy. The lover provides kindness. So that's the lover, and we'll get to the holdfasts later for those. But then we have the sovereign, who, again, some of these they kind of grate against my Quaker sensibility because, we're all equal. There is no sovereign, right? But again, that was a missing archetype for me. And the core need of the sovereign is, to be valued, or just, I would just say value in general, right? It's both to value and be valued, right? And the holdfast archetype here is the child. And it's more like the child that needs to be valued, and it's the sovereign that does the valuing. Just like a king or queen would go, oh, this is the best bakery, so I'm going to choose this baker to be my baker, or this person deserves honor, so I'm going to give them a medal, right? Or this is the best musician, or this is the best thing for our kingdom. This is the best thing for, they're making decisions, and they're making those decisions based on what value has them. It'd be in the area for Quaker terminology, it would be discernment, right? It'd be that part that seeks the counsel of the lover, warrior, and magician, and then makes the decision. Okay, or let's say in Quaker terminology, we'd call this the clerk, right? So it's deciding, what's best for the kingdom. It's getting a sense of the meeting, right? So then we have the magician, which could also be called the sage, or the wise one, right? There's a whole cluster of archetypes that fall under this, and the magician is just kind of the catch-all. And it has to do with the head, it has to do with thinking, it has to do with wisdom. The core need is around understanding. And the holdfast is the saboteur. Okay. And so the saboteur is the thing with the magician is that it's also the realm of, when you kind of have to go around things, and you kind of have to use, you don't use the direct way, you use a more indirect way. That would be the way of the wisdom. Like it's like when you're stuck between a rock and a hard place and you can't get through straight ways, it's like, oh, how can we go over this? How can we go under this? How can we go around this? And they come up with solutions that seem to be like magic, because we're pulling them. They don't seem obvious, right? They don't seem on the surface. And so pulling from that deep sense of wisdom. Okay. So that's that in general. But what I'd like for us to do is just kind of walk through a series of queries to help us discover where we might be with regard to our own archetypes, right? And in my working with people, everyone has all four of these. And generally, we tend to have consensus, if there is one, around archetypes, is that there are generally 12. Every person has 12 archetypes. Just like there's 12 tribes of Israel, there's 12 disciples, there's 12 hours in the clock, there's 12 months in the year. There's Hercules has 12 labors, Odysseus has 12 trials. And so there's just this common number of 12 parts of us, right? And 12 voices, and they're all kind of representing, they all have different needs, and they all have different things to contribute. So we could kind of see it as a Quaker meeting, right? And we're born with a full meeting, but we somewhere along the line dismember some of them, right? We send them out, or they don't feel like they're appreciated, and so they leave. And others of them, to kind of make up for the missing team members, we inflate them. Or it's not just inflated, but they take a bigger role to make up for the missing chairs, right? And so but it tends to get what Jung calls inflation, because oh, I'm important, I'm the one that's pulling, I'm the weighty Quaker here because I'm pulling more weight than the rest, right? And so the work that needs to be done to bring us into that more egalitarian, balanced meeting, where it's a healthy meeting, where the clerk is just clerking and not like bossing people around, but they're also drawing out those voices that need to be heard but haven't been heard for years, right? Does that make sense? So the external reflects the internal. Plato said, that when he wrote the Republic, and it's about how to run a city, he's just as easily talking about how to run one's soul, because the city is just a soul writ large. Okay. So, I specialize in helping people with, broken marriages or marriages that are, on the rocks or really about to break up. And I show them that, we have to turn to the inside before we can fix the outside. We can't fix the other person. We have to bring balance internally, because the external balance is often a reflection of the internal imbalance. So we're just going to run through a set of queries to maybe help us get a sense of which of our archetypes might be missing, and which ones might be inflated. Okay, so we're going to ask kind of a set of questions, which is, there's 4 different queries. Okay, and the first query is going to be about what angers us, right? So I want you, and I'd encourage you, it's going to be a lot easier. There's going to be, a series of questions. And so if you can to write this down, because we'll be able to go back to it. And I want you to be present in each question as we do it before we return to it. Okay. So in order to help us find our missing archetypes, our ghost archetypes, perhaps, let's start with this question of what angers us. And I'm going to do a multiple choice to kind of make it a little bit easier. Sometimes multiple choice are a little bit easier. So I'm going to give you 4 main categories of things that might anger us, right? And I'm not just talking about what angers you, but what really kind of gets you charged, and like even to the point where it's like, some people might say that's too much, right? I get angry more than I ought to, but in any sense, or it might be a righteous anger, and this is time for like Quaker truth and honesty, right? And introspection, right? Because the work that we're doing is shadow work. This is why it's called hell work. It's like being okay with like, yeah, I'm not just all light, right? I have some inner darkness that needs to have some light shed on it. So what is it that angers me most? Is it when others don't do what they're supposed to do? Right? And I might even feel betrayed in that case. Is it when others you love don't show you love? Is it, when other people don't value? When people you value don't value what you do or who you are? Maybe you feel unappreciated. Or is it when people don't understand you and you just feel misunderstood? So you can do it in answer the question in a couple different ways. Is it, which of these presses your button more than anything else? And we've all, I imagine, if we've been around the block a couple times, we've all felt in some degree betrayed, unloved, unappreciated, and misunderstood. But we're not talking about those events. We're talking about your response to them. Some people, people don't do what they're supposed to, and like, I don't care. Doesn't bother me. Other people, oh my gosh, you said you were going to be here, and you're late. And I take that as a deep offense. You don't respect me. You don't respect my time. So, there's different things that press each of our buttons, right? And that get us angry. So, and if you even want to write down a specific incident that you can think of, right? That can help you even get more in touch with this. All right, now we're going to go to query number 2, which is, what actions in others grieve you the most? Okay, when others break the rules, when others don't show kindness. And I'm talking about when you see this happening to someone else, right? When you see someone else breaking the rule, it's not necessarily your rule, but it's maybe the community's rule, or when you see someone else being unkind to another person, or when you see others misjudging someone's worth. Maybe they're gossiping about someone and you know that the person they're saying something about is untrue. They're, and that just really bothers you? Or is it when others act out of stupidity and just misinformation, or which one of these? And it's not necessarily that they're doing it to you, but they're just, this person did this really stupid person to this other person. It's like, how could you be? Why are people so stupid? Right? Which of those saddens you the most? To some degree, each of us are saddened by all these things. So it's a matter of ranking, right? So which one really, that just breaks my heart when that happens. Okay, so this next one is, what do you long for the most in a loved one in particular, right? This can be like a partner. This can be like a best friend. It can be just anyone that you are really close to, right? And what is it that you long for in this relationship? So the first one might be someone being trustworthy and making you feel safe. Second might be someone being caring and making you feel loved. And the third might be someone being appreciative of you and making you feel important. And finally, another thing we often seek in a relationship is someone showing they understand you and making you feel known. Oh yeah, I feel like you understand me like nobody else does. I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel known. Sometimes I'll ask people like in their marriage, I'll say, so, or their relationship, whatever it is, I'll say, if I could wave a magic wand and make your partner cause you to feel any one of these things, which would you most want? Right? They all of a sudden make you feel that. So sometimes we know most by what's lacking, right? Well, I feel understood and appreciated, and they're always saying to me, but I just don't feel safe with them. Or I feel safe and I feel connected, but I just can't tolerate not being valued. So which one of those? I guess it probably doesn't need a whole lot of explanation, but I'll just give you time to reflect on which one of those is the greatest need or greatest longing, right? All right. And then, not that any of us have fears about the world or what the world might become or about what it is, but if you were to have any fears about what the world is becoming, which sort of future world would you fear the most? A world of chaos and injustice? A world of cold-hearted indifference? Okay, so maybe there's order, but we're like, it's being run by the, Darth Vader and the Empire. It's a cold, hard order, right? So a world of chaos, a world of cold-hearted indifference, a world where no one appreciates true quality. Like, are you kidding me? People just, like, they think McDonald's is a good meal, or they, or they think, whatever area that you care most about, or they don't appreciate beauty, they don't appreciate goodness, right? They don't appreciate good music, or they don't appreciate good morals, right? Or it's a value flat world that no one, if things are worthy of more appreciation, people just don't. Or a world where foolishness and ignorance run rampant. Might be a hard choice, but we'll just take a look at that for the moment. And I'll give you just a moment to reflect on that. And that's quite a tour of emotions, right? And just so you know, these 4 emotions also tend to be, anger tends to be the emotion of the warrior. Sadness is the emotion of the lover. Value, or joy actually, is the emotion of the sovereign or clerk. And fear is the emotion of the magician or sage, because the magician can see in the future, right? And so that brings about fear. Fear is the one future-oriented emotion, just like sadness is oriented towards the past. So basically, and you've maybe already written the key for this quiz already. I didn't try to disguise it too much, but the A questions have to do with warrior. So you can kind of go through and see how many A's, how many B's, how many C's, and how many D's you came up with in your answers. And this isn't going to be I can't decode it exactly. It's not like a quiz where I can just say, oh, if you have these answers, your missing archetype is blank, but this just tells us where to look, okay? And the thing is, let's say all of yours were around A, right? So it's, when others don't do what they're supposed to do, when others break the rules, when someone's being trustworthy, or doing the opposite of breaking the rules, and they're being trustworthy and making you feel safe. And this one is the one that you most feared. Then that means that you have a lot of energy around the warrior, or around the need for safety and survival and protection and trust. Okay. Now that could be for 2 different reasons. It could be for 2 opposite reasons. It could be because that's an inflated part of yourself, or it could be because it's deflated. All right. So if it's deflated, it means I've gotten rid of my warrior, so I need someone else to protect me. Right. And usually in most relationships, what we do is we outsource one of our needs to another person. So I'm a good Quaker kid, and so I don't hold boundaries very well, and so I marry someone who's very much a warrior woman. She's a marathon runner, and she's a mathematician, and she gets stuff done like nobody's business, and I marry a warrior because I outsource that warrior, right? Of course, I didn't discover that for 20 years or so, but that was an example of this being something for me because it was deflated, right? But okay, what about lover? Oh, love is great. I got affirmed for being a lover, and Quakers are great lovers, right? That should be a bumper sticker. Quakers make great lovers. And so I had great needs around affirmation and kindness, and right. And this was a high energy thing around me as well. For me, I discovered, but that was because I was an inflated lover, right? The lover made up for the lack of sovereign and warrior, right? But just like a giant, what kind of appetite does a giant have? Well, it has a giant appetite, right? So the inflated self also is going to have a high need for that. So, but the key thing I want you to, and if you're like decoding this on your own, this isn't going to give you a definitive answer, because it takes a lot of exploration and examination, and it usually helps to have someone who's familiar with these. But I'll say that if you noticed, I had 2 of the ones I did were A, and 2 of the ones were C, right? Then probably you've got something around the warrior and around the sovereign, right? Either deflated or inflated. And this is sort of like a heat map. It's not like a precision map. It's just like, look in this direction, warmer, cooler, and it just is something to perhaps lead us to further reflection. All right. So I invite you to continue on that journey, continue on your journey of looking deep into your shadows, because as Quakers, we seek to find, that light that is within everyone. But the hardest thing to do is to look into our darkest places and find light there. Like I can find light in the lover, in the but it's harder for me to find light in my own inner warrior, because I think of evil warriors, and it's harder for me to find light in my own sovereign, because I think of when I think of sovereigns, I think of corruption, and I think of corrupt power, and I think of power corrupting. And so I can't. So what it means is I have an unhealthy relationship of power, and I outsource that, and in really unhealthy ways, and then everything goes sideways, and eventually, it comes to a screeching halt, and you have to kind of untangle the mess, right? So I hope this helps you in the slightest bit. Feel free to reach out to me, CorwynnBeals.com. You can reach me from there, or, there's other ways to reach me as well. I look forward to continuing the conversation.